Tonight we are having a conversation that we've all been having the whole of this week since the industrial unrest began. First came the teachers. The teachers then declared a nationwide strike. All four unions, something that's never happened, that all of them at the same time will call a strike. But they did, asking for 20% cost of living allowance. And then it sort of opened the floodgates. Then almost every other worker union then started issuing statements. We have the senior staff of universities issuing a statement giving government up until the 13th. That they will call a strike if they don't get it. We have the nurses issuing a statement, and then it all got to a head tonight, which we've been listening to, with the public sector workers under the TUC, 65 unions in total, coming together to say they are calling a strike in 7 days unless government can find them the money. The thing about it is the president has been speaking. He says the workers should strike a balance between what they are asking for and what the government can afford.
These difficult economic circumstances in the country, which is affecting everybody top to bottom, it'll take on an even added significance, the work that you're going to be doing. I believe that the promotion of industrial peace and harmony is a function of two things. That we establish a balance between what are the legitimate demands of labor, what are the capacities of employment of the employer. Then we can strike a fair and equitable balance between the demand and the supply, as it were. It becomes the most effective way of promoting industrial peace and harmony in our country. And as the Commission has been doing a yeoman's job so far. In the period in which I've been in this office, has performed, in my view, very creditably. I'm expecting that you will continue the tradition of effective engagement that the Commission has already established and help promote industrial peace in our country. Industrial peace is one of the key, and harmony are one of the key elements of a viable and attractive investment climate. And that should be a concern of all of us, how to position our country in such a way as to attract investment, domestic as well as foreign.
Welcome back. So, Evan, it's a conversation in two parts. Are public sector workers being realistic with their current demand of government for cost of living allowance, but also what can public sector give in terms of the IMF negotiation? I want to start with you, Kofi Asare. You are with the Africa Education Watch. You look at what teachers do. You look at the work they do and the current economic climate. Do you think teachers are getting enough? And the demand they are making now, is it reasonable? Is it justified? Kofi Asare.
Good evening to you and your cherished audience and the co-panelists. I think teachers, like all public sector workers, sacrifice and indeed are serving the nation. We are all cognizant of the increasing rate of inflation or the general price levels in the country and the extent to which it keeps eroding the value of the salary of labor. And so, yes, within the context of the declining, value of one's salary, it is justified for teachers, being one of the public sector workers, to ask their employer to consider giving an allowance to enable their members survive or manage the harsh impact.
Hello, Kofi Asare. Well, we might have lost Kofi Asare there. Let me go to Madame Faustina. You are an educationist. You look at the kind of demands that labor is making, and you look at what teachers do. Just like I put to Mr. Kofi Asare, do you think these teachers are justified in the kind of demand they are making, which is having such a domino effect in the public sector? Rose Blankson, you are an educationist. Hello. Madam Rose, can you unmute?
Good evening to you, and good evening to my co-panelists and our cherished listeners. I would say that teachers are not asking anything near what they deserve. I've been a teacher before. I was a teacher. I taught 25 years before leaving the classroom. The adage that the teacher's reward is in heaven is not. It doesn't work any longer. It doesn't. We need to be realistic when it comes to cost of living. Once upon a time, teachers were supported with this cost of living allowance that we called COLA. I don't know what happened that it was taken off. I would assume that it was taken off when the single spine salary structure came into force, because at that point, almost every government sector worker was made to be at par in one way or another, depending on your qualification. So there was some kind of balance and equality. But it's not working like that any longer. I felt really sad this week when I heard some teachers take as low as 700 Ghana cedis as their net salary. Yes, some have decided that they will not upgrade themselves. But what about the that have upgraded themselves? Do they deserve what they are earning? Is what the teacher and other public sector workers being paid realistic? For example, we started this year buying kenkey for, a ball of kenkey was 1 cedi. Now there is nowhere you get a ball of kenkey for 1 cedi. There is nowhere you get a ball of kenkey for 1 cedi, 50 pesos. You get it as 2 cedis. And previously, the 1 cedi that you would eat or your child will take in and be all right, the 2 cedis will not be enough, because the 2 cedis is smaller than the originally 1 cedi. A loaf of bread used to be 5 cedis. I'm using these basic things that almost everyone in Ghana spends money on. Bread, you won't get a loaf of bread for 3 cedis any longer. You won't get it for 5 cedis. That one which used to sell at 3 cedis is now 7 cedis. And everyone shops from the same market. It's not only the teacher. It's general, it's because government, majority of employees in Ghana are employed by the state. So honestly, the demands are justified. I don't think teachers and other unions are making demands because of what CLOSAG demanded. I don't think so.
Right.
These threats and demands have been made long before this CLOSAG thing. Way back November last year, or even earlier than that. But every time, be patient, be patient. Be patient. Things are difficult. Right. But the teacher goes to the same
Madam Rose
market.
Blankson, you make an interesting point there about the living condition in the country. It's a good time to now bring in Vincent Owusu-Appiah. The president is clear. You can make the demand, but make the demand within the context of what the employer can afford. Are those fair comments from the president, Vincent Owusu-Appiah? Vincent, can you unmute, Vincent? Before I get to Vincent, let me bring in Dr. Henry Godson-Afo. Dr. Henry Godson-Afo is also joining us from the UK. He is a Ghanaian educationist, and the president's concerns that these are tough times for everybody, and so you must be making these claims of government, but you must also be factoring in what government can afford. What do you make of that? Hello, Doc. Can you unmute? Doc will join us. Doc will join us shortly. Then let me bring in Efodela. Efodela, you are a blogger. You live in Ghana. You see the situation firsthand. But given the context of what the president has just said, that the demands must be within a framework of government can afford. What do you think about that?
Oh, okay. Good evening to everybody. I don't agree with the president's point of thinking. The president has not, and the government have not indicated in any way that government cannot afford it to pay people. They are investing money in ridiculous things like the chapel. That is, they are spending quite a lot of money on. When Toby Apede returned the money that was given to him as ex gratia, he received a backlash from his own party, which indicates that they are comfortable paying those huge sums of money to a few people. We have a minister who has gone AWOL. She's a minister and a member of parliament, and she's still being paid. The ministers who are in power are earning a huge amount of money, and they are not making any sacrifices. They've not suggested that they are going to reduce their pays. They've not suggested that if there's going to be a pay increase, they are not going to take it. And there's likely going to be a pay increase for them, and they're going to take it. They are going to take allowances and everything like that. So it's a bit ridiculous to ask people who are the lower earning part of the food chain to make sacrifices, whilst those who are the upper part of the food chain do not make any sacrifice. One might say that, well, the people at the top are not, there's not enough money at the top that can trickle down. But sometimes these things are symbolic gestures. We want to show that we are ready to make the sacrifice, and other people should make sacrifices too. But if the people at the top are not making those sacrifices, you cannot ask people like teachers who are providing essential services to the future of the country to tighten their belt and not make demands in an environment that is clearly very hostile to people's pockets. The guest who spoke before me spoke about how the price of everything is going up. The price of everything is going up. The only thing that isn't going up, like we know, is the salaries. And I do not, like I said, I do not agree with the president. If the president wants to ask people to tighten their belt, he should give people a reason. Like, we might say that the economic situation is not doing well in the country and people should look at it, but that's not a reason. People are working hard and they deserve to be paid for the work they are being done. And if their salaries are losing value, they deserve to be compensated for the lost value in the salary. Somebody who was earning 700 cedis last year is not earning even if the salary is the same, it's not earning the same value for the work they are doing. That 700 cedis cannot achieve the same things. If that person has hospital bills, the hospital is not going to say that because the government is suffering, you're not going to take the amount of money that they're going to charge you. If your children owe school fees, you will still pay the school fees, even though your salary has lost value. So no, the government should not ask people to tighten their belts while they themselves are spending extravagantly on ridiculous initiatives. We can't say, nobody can say that the government wasn't warned about some of these things that they are doing. People have been shouting about some of these unnecessary initiatives that the government has been taking, and they've insisted on going on with it. So they cannot come and tell essential workers that they should make sacrifices when they themselves are not making sacrifices. So no, I do not agree with it.
Let me bring back Kofi Asare, who is connecting with us. Kofi, you were making a point before your network jammed a bit.
Yeah, I was making a point that obviously once you have increasing inflation levels, month on month, you are obviously experiencing an erosion in the real value of your salary. And so it is, reasonable for organized labor to appeal to their employers to consider giving them some cushioning so that they can manage and survive and put up their best, especially within the public sector, where we all know that income levels are relatively low. And also, we all know that they are providing an essential service, especially within the context of the teachers. Having said that, it is not the case that one is not oblivious, or one is oblivious of the economic challenges we find ourselves in. We have serious liquidity constraints. The fiscal space is very, very constrained, and indeed, and very, very constricted when it comes to especially the compensation budget of government. And if I say government, by extension, the Ministry of Education, because the Ministry of Education is the largest employer in the country. Teachers alone, at the tertiary sector, close to 350,000 or thereabouts. And in the JES's wage budget for this year alone is 8 billion. Okay, and so it is different. It's a different thing demanding increases in other budget lines. But when about and for JES, for instance, when about 90% of the government of Ghana's expenditure to JES goes to salaries, it means that if immediately you touch that line, it has a higher, cascading effect on,
right. But Kofi, that is the problem, is it not? We've seen data from government for the first quarter, the amount government collected, how much it used to service debt, how much it used to pay salaries. So government does not have much of a fiscal space. And these demands are now coming in. Are workers not being inconsiderate in terms of government's positioning and the kind of demand they are making? It started off from NAGRAT and the teacher unions. Now it's just had a cascading effect. Almost all public sector workers are asking of same. Realistically, government simply cannot pay public sector workers 20% of their base pay in these critical times.
You see, it's difficult to use the word inconsiderate because it's like going to a shop and buying a shoe, and then you realize that the shoe, it doesn't fit you. It is tightening you. It is hurting your small toe. Complaining to perhaps you went to the shop with your father to buy the shoe. Complaining to your dad that this shoe is hurting my small toe does not mean that you are being inconsiderate. You appreciate that daddy has bought you a shoe. But within that context, you also appreciate that you are struggling in the shoe. So organized labor, and for that matter, teachers complaining to their employer that we are going through a lot of economic hardships. Our disposable income, or if you like, our take-home pay is eroding by the day because of the increasing levels of prices, including almost especially fuel and foodstuff. We are struggling to survive, and so give us a cushion. I don't think there is anything inconsiderate about that. I don't think there's any entrenched position about that. I think it's an invitation from the employer to from the employee to the employer to have a discussion on how best you can support us. Not necessarily 20% which they are demanding, because every demand is subject to negotiation. Every proposal is subject to a counter proposal. But have a discussion to see how best you can support your own employee to be able to remain effective and efficient in the delivery of their duties, so that we have a win-win. I don't think that is inconsiderate. But I appreciate that, as I said, the fiscal space is hugely constricted.
Right. Rose Blankson, when you spoke earlier, you brought in the experience of your former life as a teacher, as your time as a teacher. But Ghana is now entering an IMF deal. And just like I was asking Kofi Asare, you look at some of the conditionalities that usually come with IMF programs. It's either wage freeze, it's either public sector will not be allowed to employ more people now. How can organized labor meet government halfway? Even as they make these new demands, how can they chip in to ensure that government gets some deal with the IMF, which they won't turn, as we've seen TUC and others issue statements saying that they don't want the government to negotiate a deal that affects them negatively? How can government meet these organized laborers halfway so that some of these challenges are addressed?
Well, thank you. I would take it from where the immediate previous contributor left off. the fact that it's not a demand for the 20% to be made. I mean, organized labor is asking for 20%, but there has never been a situation in negotiation in Ghana or anywhere I know of that a demand or a request is made and everything is given. A lot of the times it starts from 30%, 20%, and it trickles down to 7%, 6%, or even 5%. I really think that the excuse, for want of a better expression, that the president is given is not really fair, because we are all here in Ghana. We see how people are lavishing money and lavishing wealth and living rosy lives. Why should some group of people sacrifice? Why should some group of people be seen to be considerate while others live as though yatisikaso? Why? Why should that be? Why should a child be in the same school with another child who comes to school full, but he or she has empty stomach? Not that the mother or father is lazy, but because we have people who don't feel for the employee. I mean, the staff, I mean, workers are not making demands that are unreasonable.
Okay.
The demands they are making is very reasonable, very legitimate demands.
So
My brother,
please,
yes,
please
I'm
continue.
listening.
Please continue.
Hello?
Please continue.
Yes. So I was going to say that, I mean, ministers, as was cited earlier, those in government, how many of them buy fuel? How many? They have fuel coupons, they use it for whatever
but we all
they
recognize
like.
that
They don't
government
really account
early
to
on
anything.
this year announced some measures that it was taking to cut government expenditure, included cutting fuel coupons that political appointees will receive.
Oh, yes. So, yes, there's been some cut. It has been announced that there will be some cut, and it appears to have happened. Government realize that, you know, we are in difficulty, but failed to realize that that same difficulty the nation is in, individuals in the nation are also in that same difficulty. I went to the fuel station to buy fuel. Less than a week later, I decided that I have some money, so I should go and buy the same quantity I bought previously. After buying it, I just asked for the station's mobile money number to send mobile money, as I usually pay with mobile money. And the gentleman said, Mama, to assist you to wait now, the cost has changed, because I mentioned what the cost should be and said, right, and said, no. Imagine I had not even planned. I didn't have anything extra. Imagine the embarrassment that I would have gone through. And other people are going through the same embarrassment. You go to the shop, you have the money in your hand, you know you bought something yesterday for 1 cedi. You go the next day and it is 2 cedis, 50 pesos. And someone can tell us that Ghanaian people increase prices as though they bring their items in jets. There are some pictures circulating of items that were bought from whichever market that costs 100 Ghana cedis. Those items can never cost less than 500 Ghana. So we need to be fair to ourselves. We need to be sincere to ourselves. We need to be fair to the employee.
I mean,
I think,
yeah, I mean, I want to run what you said by Efodela. You are in the private sector. You must certainly have a different experience with this challenge with the economy and salaries. Please unmute Efodela.
Yes, no, I don't have a different experience because, like I said, the value of everybody's salary is just losing meaning. And even though I'm in a private sector and my salary might be appreciably more than people in the public sector, it's even I am struggling quite a bit because I'm taking some online courses, for example. And if you pay for something in June and you want to pay for it in July, the value of it is so different that it's really stressful. I can imagine the pain that people who are earning far less than myself are going through. And I think the biggest issue I have with all of this is that before, the government has been unrealistic and has made quite a lot of promises to people. And you can't make all those promises and then come back years later and decide that people who have voted for you based on those promises should change their mind about those promises. If they had been realistic in the beginning about the state of things, people might have prepared for it. People might not have maybe invested in certain things that they thought that were going to go a certain way. People might not have maybe bought their cars, or maybe people would not put their children in particular schools. People would find other ways to deal with their health conditions and things like that. But the government assured us that they had everything under control, and they made quite a lot of fun about previous governments who had not been able to handle it. So people had their faith well grounded in the government, and the government is being untruthful even when it comes to the state of the economy right now. And like I said previously, for me, like the government's approach to all of this has been a bit ridiculous by stating how difficult things are and not showing that those things are difficult and expecting everybody else to sacrifice, but not them. They are not setting a good example for people to follow, and they are not giving anyone a reason to sacrifice. You cannot ask people to sacrifice because they are being patriotic. You can't take patriotism to the market to buy food. You can't, if your child is sick, you can't take patriotism to the hospital. The hospital is not going to take patriotism. You cannot ask people to sacrifice.
We'll back to you, but Vincent is connecting with us in the UK. He's a Ghanaian journalist based in the UK. Vincent, you look at the UK where you live, living standards, there have been talks about inflation. It's a similar situation just around the world.
I mean, I'm curious. Vincent must certainly have some sympathies for the government of Ghana. Vincent, do you have any sympathies considering that? Because, I mean, the argument we've heard here in Ghana is that, even in the UK, times are hard, So we must all understand where we are. Do you have any sympathies? I'm sure you have families back home who are in Ghana. You are there. What are your sympathies?
Good evening to all your listeners out there. I'm not sure if I have sympathies to the Ghana government. And we'll all bow down to the taxations or tax systems in Ghana, which to me, I think it's not working well. Nana Akufo-Addo, who is the president of Ghana, was in this country, has his education here. And there are so many things that I think that he should have been able to implement in Ghana in terms of tax systems. And let me give you an example. I went to English FA to make inquiries about how players, national team players, are being paid, especially bonuses. And the document that they gave to me was when England national team players in any tournament or even qualifiers, when they win a game, each player receives £1,500. When they draw a game, it's £1,000. And when they lose, each player receives £500. And out of all this money, 10% of it goes to the charity. So if England, a country like this, which is more of advanced country, pays national players £1,500 for winning a game, and Ghana national team players doesn't pay tax, and they were being paid a bonus of between £8,000 to £10,000 without any tax. People are working hard in Ghana. But why the system is not working in the way of taxations.
But there's another way of looking at the argument you just put forth, which is that the player in the UK who plays for the national team, it's okay to accept. He will accept that £1,500. But will the Ghanaian player accept $1,500, for example? No. So you can make a reverse argument and say where we are is also partly due to our own greed, possibly, but that we will just not accept what is in the best interest of the country. And so we force the system and the politicians to do things that, to live beyond our means. Is that what it is? That we are also to blame?
Well, the money that they've been paid to the national team players is based from the taxation from the hardworking people in Ghana. The teachers, military people, the police, civil servants, and all. Most of them work yearly, and even they don't even have time to even go on leave. How many civil servants or even employers get leave allowances or even leave for their workers? These are all things that government needs to consider, because, as I said, the president, even his vice president, they all had opportunity to travel to Europe to have the education, and they experience all this kind of taxes, which is helping the country to move forward. Now that we are in this different situation, now look at this. This is the letter that I got from the council, which I would say in Ghana, assembly. So this is the letter that I got to collect £150, which is being given by the government to every citizen or everyone who, it doesn't matter even if you pay council tax. I pay my council tax, and every month it's £92. Even they have a band, so the band A, band D, band B, band C, band D, and it's a category. Some of them are disabled, some of them are refugees, some of them are. So every category has its own things. So and if you're in category C, mean that your property that you live in is more expensive. So those in category A are more of those on benefits, disabled and stuff like that. So if you're on, it doesn't matter whether you're on A up to D, whoever lives in this country will have this £150,000, which it has run on for about 2 months or so.
£150,000, I think, for what? I mean, is there a social benefit that
it's because of we all complain about the living conditions in the country, whereby it's not even the country, the whole world.
But Ghana, we can't afford that, can we?
We can't afford that. I agree to it, but
hold on briefly. Let me bring in Dela. Has something to Dela. Yes, go on.
Yeah. So Evan, so I wanted to jump in previously when you said that. Aren't people being greedy? No, people aren't being greedy. People are basing their expectations on what their leaders are doing. If the Ghana football players, for example, the leaders of like the GFA were not earning ridiculous amounts of money, the players will not be demanding ridiculous amounts of money. You see sometimes they mention the bonuses on TV, and then you see what's the breakdown of what people in higher positions are earning, which is more than what the players are earning. So they know that the money is there, so they are making those demands. I feel like there are lots of initiatives that the government has put in place that just don't work. Everybody complained about the free SHS thingy. Like, who asks where are we going to get the money from? How is everybody, like even people who can afford it, why are you giving free SHS to people who can afford it? It was a big issue right from the beginning, but the government insisted on implementing it. I had the opinion that if we were able to expand the tax bracket, and that, especially with the Ghana card, we should be able to get everybody's tax details. We should base free SHS on where you fall in the tax bracket. If you fall in a certain place, you obviously can pay school fees, and you should not be getting free SHS for your students. Schools will be able to support themselves. Teachers would not be spending their time, their own money buying chalk and things like that. These are things that the government said they would do and have insisted on doing, even after people have spoken to them that it's not feasible. Like, I keep coming back to the National Cathedral. Like, the government released 250 million Ghana cedis or something like 500 million Ghana cedis for this church. we are not going to do anything with it. If they want tourists,
you really think that the government priority also comes in? But let me give you all of you one final round, and let me start with you, Dela. What are you willing to give to ensure that government gets a bailout? Just something short. What are you willing to give? Are you willing to give anything at all?
No, nothing. Because government is not willing to give anything to make sure the country survives. So I can't be expected to survive.
Let me go to Rose Blankson. What are you willing to give? Anything?
I think we've already given enough. We've given the support. We've been lied to. We supported the e-levy because we thought the e-levy would not take us to IMF. We supported it wholeheartedly, but we realized that we've been lied to. So we've given enough. It's about time government also give us something.
Vincent,
nothing, absolutely.
Vincent, you don't live here, but you have family here. What are you willing to give?
As part of what?
As part, I mean, to aid government get a bailout.
As your contribution to, you know, the push towards a bailout.
Evans, just wait for a few weeks to hear the announcement from the Ghana Football Association or even the Sports Ministry, the amount of money that they're going to spend for the Black Stars to the Qatar. Then you can imagine that if you have that money, why can't we implement or have a way that they can save the economy or the people in Ghana, hard-working people, within that short time that we're having these difficulties.
Right.
I'm telling you.
Is Kofi Asare still with us? Kofi Asare. Evans, we can take some comments.
I think
Kofi.
I think that the teachers, one option is that the teachers, cognizant of the constricted fiscal space, can negotiate. Can negotiate with government, and indeed, if government is ready to negotiate, and then have a deferred COLA, and then negotiate against it next year, which means that government can agree that, okay, we're going to pay you 20% or 15% or 10%, win-win. But then we are going to pay that money in next year, you know, in next year's budget, because this year is very tight. That is one option, okay? But that option is only a realistic one if government can give the assurance, not verbally, but practically, that we are going to have a mechanism to apply the brakes to the rising inflation levels. Because if they agree that, okay, we are going to take our COLA agreed this year, but we're going to pay it next year, there must be a mechanism and assurance that fuel price levels will not continue rising. Because if inflation, especially fuel and food price inflation, continues to increase at this rate, then the teachers might not live, as someone will say, to even see next year and collect their deferred COLA. So there are options, but for me, the most important thing is that government should be ready to negotiate, and give a counter proposal to the striking teachers.
Okay.
And put in place mechanisms to ensure that the brakes of inflation are actually applied.
Okay, Kofi, thank you very much. All connectors, I'm grateful. Just a few of your messages on this. This one says, Evans, if the president is talking of balance, then not being truthful and fair as a statesman, this is because the difference between the teacher's salary and the rate of inflation is 20%. So what is the president talking about? Christina Denta Centers down. Martin Luther in Laboni. The various teacher unions have not been fair to the government during the COVID-19 era. They were paid for over a year without work. So some Ghanaian teachers with private schools were not, and others were even dismissed. They should end the strike because it is illegal. Those are his thoughts on this. A few more of your messages on this. This one from Steel in Salpon. I suspect that the government should give every government worker a salary advance of 2 months to be paid in 2 years. Well, that's an interesting suggestion, and we'll see if when they sit down next week and begin to talk, it may come up or not. This one from Nana. I believe the UK contributor said, because I believe in what the UK contributor said, because it's partially retired in the UK and my corporate pension has been increased. because of the current economic difficulties. A few more of your comments on this. It says, please, how can a player be a referee at the same time? Well, he's talking about the issues with the NLC, making some pretty controversial comments about the workers' demands even before they begin the facilitation of the conversation. Please, since when did the president know that we must make demands based on what the employer can afford? We Ghanaians employed the president. Did he ask if we can afford his luxurious jet hiring before he was flying all over the place? Question from Michael into.
So once we've been connecting from Ghanaians and abroad, from Ghanaians here and abroad. Thanks for joining us. We'll have another interesting conversation next week. Good night.